I want to preface this all with saying that while there are aspects I miss of old MapleStory, I thoroughly enjoy the game it has become today. I started shortly after the beta server came out, which was more or less when GMS came out, and ever since that moment, MapleStory has been a staple of my life. When I think of my teenage years, I think MapleStory. And it wasn't until the Destiny update that I actually came back consistently. Before then, it was only when classes came out, or when a major update happened. In any case, you don't need my life story. All I'm trying to say is that I've played a lot of classic MapleStory, and while these are some of the aspects I do miss of classic MapleStory, I do think the game has changed for the better. In any case, let's just get into the first one. The first major thing I'd like to bring up is class differences, but not in the way a lot of people like to talk about. Normally, when I see discussion about how homogenized classes are now, or just how similar they can be to one another, for example, Nightlords used to be the only one with a flash jump, and now everybody has some version of it or something even better. Or the fact that ranged classes such as Bowmaster or Marksman no longer feel that special when you have melee classes that are sometimes able to hit almost as far away as the range classes can. Sure, it may not be as far as a Marksman can currently hit, but it is still a lot more than you would generally expect a melee class in a game to be capable of. It's things like this that leave some feeling like their class just isn't special or lost its identity. Here's the thing, I can agree with some of those arguments, such as ranged classes not feeling very ranged anymore. And while there are those that may look at a warrior being able to flash jump and have visual disgust at that because they feel like they were robbed of their special class mechanic, things have really stayed quite similar. While the warriors may have natural haste speed and be able to flash jump around, their mobility is still a lot worse than the average class. If you spend a day playing a paladin and you go from something like a shadower, you're going to feel that mobility loss. What you won't see is a tanky difference between classes. Classes with high HP like Dark Knight used to have a severe advantage in bossing. They also used to be a lot more economic with leveling, needing a lot less HP pots or being able to use better percent HP pots that were more bang for your buck, compared to classes like Thieves that had to use flat HP and that costed a lot more. That is a difference I actually do miss. Now I gotta follow it up with this. I don't miss the fact that Nightlords and Bowmasters used to not be able to boss without HP washing or having a pocket DK giving them hyper body. I think that's a little bit too much. Nowadays, when your class has 80k health, you really get no benefit from it. Warriors used to be one of the most reliable sources of stance, so you had that to fall back on. Everybody has stance now. Everybody has ridiculous HP pools allowing everybody to use percent HP potions. So really, the large HP pool of warriors has no upside anymore. Some warriors still have a little bit of that tanky spice. You know, paladins are unkillable juggernauts that just ignore everything. Same with Mahils. Heroes get a cooldown that allows them to just have passive super stance for a long period of time. So warriors do still have this in their identity a little bit, but the HP pool, it just means nothing anymore. And quite frankly, I do wish we had more things like Crimson Queen's Breath that if you're tanky enough, you can just ignore it. The next thing might be the thing I miss the most, and that is gear drops or rare drops while you're leveling or specifically hunting for rare drops. Every single classic Mapler who has played for any decent amount of time probably has some memories of going to Mush Mom and just hoping that today is the day that she drops you a set of Ilby throwing stars. Or maybe you went over to the Hennis's hunting grounds and you were training on some green mushrooms and you got a panlid. Maybe you vaguely knew what this item was and that it was a highly desired status symbol, and maybe you also got scammed out of it by somebody who was just lurking around waiting for someone to find one. There were so many enemies that just had chances for you to just win the lotto and hit it big in the middle of grinding, which was good because back then, grinding actually costed you money. Mana potions were basically one meso for one mana restored, and that added up. Most regular monster drops alone were not enough to recuperate your loss, especially if you were playing something like a mage and using your teleport very frequently. That was expensive. That is also something I do not miss, by the way. The feeling of getting more equipment drops on average, that isn't quite replicated. Node stones do a pretty good job of filling the void of that. Difference being, a node is just a node. And while it is very exciting to get nodes, especially when you first come back and start getting them for the first time, a node can't be above average and sell for a good amount of money, at least not on reboot. And a node can't be a 60% glove attack scroll. As for the rare drops, well, that stuff moved to bossing. Now we get excited over things like getting Dominator pendants, lucky superior Gullix drops, or any pitched boss accessory. The spirit of that is still there. It's just not in the grinding aspect of the game, and that's okay, I guess, but it's still something that I miss. I wish enemies could still drop something that was valuable that isn't just like a potential scroll or something like that. You know, the rare drops we can see now, but just they're not as valuable. This next one is admittedly something I miss. I have fond memories of, but it's not necessarily something I would want added back into the game in some capacity, and that is distinguished leveling spots. Now it needs to be said that leveling areas like Hennis's Hunting Grounds or Land of the Wild Boar, Forest of Golem, these places, they partially got their name because players spent a long time there. They had a long time to establish memories and get attached to them. Whereas now with MapleStory, players just don't spend that long on a single character in areas until they probably get to around level 235 plus. And what made some of the higher level places in classic MapleStory so special, I'm talking places like Spirit Vikings in Ludibrium, Coolie Zombies in Elnath, or something like Gobies and Squids in Aqua Road. These places were kind of special because players knew about them and they could even go to them at a lower level and just look at people leveling there. And in some cases, those players even had to die many times to safely get to there just to hang out on a rope and watch people. And that kind of experience of dodging your way through high-level mobs that could potentially one-shot you just to get to that spot to watch some high-level people, well, it was something special. When I was on my ranger training at Gobies, some people would just hang out on occasion, and you know what? It was kind of rough at times because having another person on the map at Gobies, it makes the AI just a little bit wonky. And the state of the game now, with the way the leveling is, especially 1 to 200 and the way it is afterwards, this kind of thing just can't really happen as much. We have leveling spots that we know and we're familiar with because of the guide, but it's not the same. And if you play classic MapleStory, there's a good chance you agree. The next thing is a little bit of a collection of many small things, but one of the bigger aspects of it is party quests. This is one of the most common things I see people wanting to be brought back into the game in its original form because we still have party quests. They're just not nearly as efficient and as special as they once were. Now, even though I'm not nearly as much of a PQ fan as many other players are, I did still do them, and they represent something that I liked even more, which were just things that brought players together. I don't even necessarily mean in the party sense. I just mean even things like riding on the boat to Orbis and then getting jumped by Crimson Balrogs as a bunch of players just huddle for safety in the cabin. While I don't exactly want the world to go back to the point where you had to take 10-minute boat rides to get from one area to the next, I did miss that experience. Even being the person that could go outside and actually fight the Crimson Balrog, whether you kill it or not, was something impressive. Then you had other things like the Hennes's Hunting Grounds that could potentially have up to like 9 to 12 players grinding on the exact same map, and somehow that was still kind of efficient. And once again, I don't even think I want that back because the game just can't support that. A map would have to be truly gigantic to support multiple people grinding on it now. I just think that almost every person who played back then probably has fond memories of the Hennes's Hunting Grounds. It was truly a special place in MapleStory. For many players after Maple Island, that was their beginning. Maybe they found a panlid there, and from then on, everyone called them a pro player. Or maybe they made some friends there. Maybe they got scammed there. Maybe, just maybe, they have memories of somebody dropping toy Trojans on the snail level and causing a bunch of players to die. The Hennes's Hunting Grounds is truly a special place to many people who played MapleStory back then. While we may not have the Hennes's Hunting Grounds, we don't have a ship to Orbis that has Crimson Balrogs, or we don't have Forest of Golems, which was basically just a higher level Hennes's Hunting Grounds. We also have event hubs, which players can congregate to and lag each other out or play mini games together for better or for worse. I'm sure everyone who played the bingo event recently probably didn't like other players very much. MapleStory has evolved a lot, and to many that means it's gotten worse. But for me, someone who's played thousands of hours of classic MapleStory, I really do think it's gotten better. I find the classes to be more enjoyable, the grinding to be a lot better, way more activities to do in the game. I mean, hell, back then we used to just grind for the sake of grinding. There wasn't much to work towards. You could try to do a Zakum as a party, but unless you were a hermit, nobody really wanted you. Unless you were a Dark Knight to also buff the hermit with Hyper Body, or a bishop to heal and cleanse debuffs off the hermit. What I'm saying is it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. The game had its flaws, just like any game does. For many of us, MapleStory was just our childhood. We played it when we were young, we had no responsibilities, and you probably have fond memories of the friends and people you met during that time. As for the game itself, I really do believe it's gotten better. I would love to hear from you guys. You know, what do you miss? What would you miss if you were to go back? Hell, maybe just what was your favorite memory of classic MapleStory? For me, it's got to be when I hit level 30 on my first thief and turned into a bandit. God, I was so excited to use Savage Blow, and it did not disappoint. Hitting for that many lines back then was really something special, and that sound effect was just perfect. In any case, that is all for me today. Thank you to you for watching. Thank you to my members and my patrons for supporting me as always, and I'll see you in the next one.